That afternoon, golden sunlight poured through the hall's glass windows, reflecting off the white ribbons and sparkling crystal vases. I stood beside Alex, my fiancé, holding his hand gently. My older brother Kyle was slipping a ring onto Jessica's finger amid a wave of loud applause. Everything seemed so perfect it hardly felt real. I tilted my head and whispered in Alex's ear. "Look, Kyle is so happy. He is really adorable. I have never seen him smile that brightly before." Alex gave my hand a squeeze, his lips curving into a gentle smile. "Yes, Kyle deserves that. And so do you, Linda. We will have a wedding just as beautiful someday, at St. Mary's Church, with a reception down by the harbor." I let out a soft laugh and leaned lightly against his shoulder. "I do not need anything grand. As long as I have you, that is enough." Alex said nothing, only gave a faint nod. But his eyes drifted away from me, toward Jessica, radiant in her white wedding dress. His gaze lingered on her longer than I expected. I nudged his hand and teased him with a smile. "Jessica is beautiful, but do not stare at her like that. She is about to become my brother's wife." Alex let out a quiet laugh, his eyes still cool and hard to read. I did not think much of it. I only felt my heart grow warmer as the soft jazz music floated through the air. The reception went on. An idea suddenly came to me. "I have an idea. Let me go find Kyle and Jessica so we can take a family photo together. Wait for me here." Alex nodded, his voice low. "Good idea. I will get you a glass of champagne. You look a little tired." I smiled and turned away from the crowd. In the shimmering light, the elegantly dressed guests were still raising their glasses, talking and laughing boisterously. I slipped between them, asking a few of the servers if they had seen the bride and groom. A man in a server's uniform with a black bow tie at his collar tilted his head and spoke softly. "Ma'am, I think I saw the bride with a man heading toward the library in the East Wing." I nodded in thanks, my heart brimming with excitement. Maybe they were looking for a bit of quiet in the middle of this noisy party. I told myself I would surprise them, then ask them to take a few photos together. The east corridor was silent, warm yellow light spilling onto the glossy wooden floor. The heavy library door was only open a crack. I called out softly, "Kyle, Jessica, are you in there?" No one answered. I moved closer and gently pushed the door open. In that moment, everything inside me seemed to stop. The light from the corridor poured in, illuminating two bodies wrapped tightly around each other in the corner of the room. Alex, my fiancé, and Jessica, my brother's wife. They were kissing, fiercely, desperately, as if the entire world had narrowed down to just the two of them. I stood there in shock. Every sound around me vanished. The music, the laughter, the voices were all swallowed by a cold, hollow silence. My heart slammed in my chest, then felt as if it shattered. Jessica lifted her head, her voice trembling. "What are we going to do now?" "I am pregnant, Alex. I do not know who the father is." I pressed my hand hard against my chest, feeling as if something inside me had completely collapsed. I remained frozen behind the half-closed door, my breath locked in my throat. Alex finally spoke, his voice so low and cold it was terrifying. "Calm down. Everything is still going according to plan. You have to get Kyle to sign the papers giving you the house today." Jessica looked at him, her eyes unsteady. But will he believe it? He is not someone who is easily manipulated. Alex let out a soft laugh, his voice drawn out with open contempt. "He is already so blindly in love with you. And besides, Aunt Angela is behind us, giving everything a push. You just need to do it. No matter what, We have to get that house before everything blows up. That is what really matters. Do you understand me? I stood frozen. My legs no longer felt like they belonged to me. Were the two of them having an affair? My fiancé and my brother's wife? How could this be? Wasn't Alex the one who claimed he loved me more than anything? Yet he had not only betrayed me, he was conspiring with Jessica. They had planned to take my brother's house for themselves. They were exploiting Kyle's trust. And the baby Jessica had mentioned, no one was even sure who the father was. I could no longer stay calm. A breath burst out of my mouth, beyond my control. Both of them snapped their heads around. Jessica glared toward the door, her mouth falling open, her face drained of all color. Alex stepped fully out of the shadows, his eyes razor-sharp, fixed and searching, as if he were trying to see straight through the door. I did not stay there another second. I turned and broke into a run out of the doorway, my hand slamming into a guest and knocking the champagne glass out of their hand and onto the floor. The sound of my high heels hammered against the floor. Tears spilled over, salty and bitter, blurring everything in front of me. The radiant wedding and all the golden lights melted into a twisted mass of color. Alex's voice rang out behind me. "Linda, is that you? Stop." I did not answer. I just ran. As if stopping would make me fall apart. As if the whole world had just turned upside down. The laughter and chatter in the hall still sounded behind me, echoing like someone was mocking my pain. I hurried down the stone steps, racing toward the back garden, where no one could see me, where I could finally collapse without having to pretend to be calm anymore. I just wanted to disappear from that place, from this glittering wedding that had just buried all my faith in a wound that would never heal. I rushed along the long corridor, the soles of my feet numb. Everything around me smeared and blurred. The shimmering lights of the reception, the jazz music, the laughter echoing behind me all clogged in my ears. I only wanted to hide, far away. As I staggered across the wet grass, a hand suddenly closed around my arm. I yanked it away on reflex, breathing hard. "Do not touch me." A voice sounded, low and steady. "Linda, are you all right?" I spun around. In front of me was the familiar face of Kyle, my older brother. Under the twinkling garden lights, there was no trace of the happiness of a groom who had just been standing at the altar in his eyes. His face was unnervingly calm, his gaze on me sharp and clear in a way that sent a chill down my spine. I burst into tears. "Kyle? You have no idea what I just saw. My fiancé and your wife are having an affair in the library." He did not let me say anything more. "Come with me. Hurry." He pulled me along. He did not ask anything else, did not stop. We cut through a side passage that led to a small room in the back. He opened the door, went in first, then slammed it shut and turned the lock. The room was completely silent. I dropped into an old leather armchair. My whole body was shaking. Kyle, Alex, and Jessica. They were in the library. I saw them. He stood in front of me, bracing both hands on the table, his eyes fixed straight ahead without blinking. I already know. I lifted my head, unable to believe what I had just heard. "You know." "Since when did you know?" "For a long time." I began to suspect it from the way Jessica appeared so perfectly at just the right moment, and from the way Aunt Angela kept bringing up the idea of me signing the house over as a wedding gift. I bit my lip, forcing down all the questions. His eyes no longer looked like those of someone who had just been betrayed. They were the eyes of a man who had already prepared himself for a battle. I realized that what I had seen was only a small part of a plan much larger than I had imagined. I sat there, tears still sliding down my cheeks. My voice caught in my throat. But why? Why did you still marry her? And Alex? What about him? Kyle leaned down, took my hand, and gave it a gentle squeeze. Linda, listen to me. This is no longer just about an affair. This is an entire show that has been staged from the very beginning, and you have just seen what is happening behind the curtain. He lifted his head, looking straight into my eyes, his voice not loud but firm. Do you want to see the main act? Come perform with me? I drew back a little, staring at him without blinking. Perform? Perform what? I do not understand what you are saying. Kyle smiled. That smile was no longer warm like it used to be. It was sharp and cold. Do not worry, the main act is about to begin. They think they are good actors, but they do not know that we are the ones holding the script. I looked at him, and before I could answer, he had already pulled his phone from the pocket of his suit jacket, tapped it a few times, then held the screen out for me to see. I took it and looked at the photo. It was an old photograph, the paper already yellowing. My grandfather was young, wearing a suit, with his arm around a pretty, youthful woman in a park. I squinted. This is Aunt Angela, right? But she looks so different. No. Kyle shook his head, his voice dropping. That is her mother. And your grandfather. He is Aunt Angela's father. I sat up straight, as if a jolt of electricity had shot down my spine. But that is not our grandmother, is it? Are you saying Angela is grandfather's child from another woman? That is right. She was never acknowledged, never inherited anything. She has always believed she was the one who was cast aside. It is that resentment that turned her into the person behind everything. Jessica and Alex are only two pawns. Kyle watched me for a few more seconds, his voice steady. Do you understand now? This is not just some love triangle. This is a revenge plot that has been brewing in the shadows for decades, and you are standing right in the middle of it. I stayed silent. There were no tears left. I wiped my face with my sleeve and drew in a deep breath. My voice no longer trembled. So what do we do now? Kyle placed a tissue in my hand, his eyes calm in an almost unsettling way. Wipe your face. Then we will go back to the party. Just follow each step I give you. I looked at him and said nothing. He went on. Let them think you were just crying over something trivial. Maybe you were moved. Maybe you had a little argument over nothing. As long as they see you as weak, because that innocence today is your strongest weapon. I nodded. The pain was still there in my chest, but it was no longer a hollow kind of pain. It had turned into something clearer, more defined. I stood up and stepped close beside my brother. The two of us walked out of the room as if nothing had happened. But I knew that from that moment on, I was no longer the Linda I had been that morning. And from now on, I would stand with my brother to write a different ending for the fake play unfolding out there. I returned to the hall, looking as composed as I could. The cold champagne in my hand soothed my throat. I forced a faint smile as I passed a few familiar guests. The jazz music kept playing. I stood tucked into a corner near the bar, my eyes following the people raising their glasses to one another under the soft golden lights. I tilted my head back and took a sip. And suddenly, like a chain reaction, the shattered pieces of memory inside me began to fall into place. I remembered clearly one evening less than a month ago. The whole family was gathered for dinner in the main dining room. Aunt Angela carried in a dessert tray, set it in the center of the table, then quietly gazed out the large window facing the sea. She let out a quiet sigh. How unfair this is. This house, every stone in this garden, should have belonged to my side of the family. My father made a promise to my mother. My mother looked up, her voice softening. Angela, that is enough. It all ended a long time ago. You are already a part of this family." Aunt Angela brushed it aside at once. How could I ever forget? I live in my own house and feel like a tenant who has been staying too long. Back then, I only felt sorry for her and did not understand the meaning behind those words. But now, when I remembered the look in her eyes, I realized it had not been sadness. It had been resentment. I also remembered that 2 weeks before the wedding, Aunt Angela kept coming to Kyle's office again and again. "Kyle, that share transfer contract for the subsidiary company, I left it on your desk. Sign it soon, all right? Dear, this mansion is your personal property. Before you get married, you should prepare some precautionary documents, or you could simply sign the house over to Jessica. If she finds out, she will definitely be very touched." Back then, Kyle only laughed and patted her lightly on the shoulder. "It is all right, Aunt Angela. I have everything under control." Thinking back now, that smile of his no longer seems so simple. In his eyes, there had been a quiet caution that I had never noticed. I took another sip of champagne. Another fragment of memory surfaced. That day was the first backyard barbecue where Jessica came to meet my family. She stood by the grill, wearing a modest floral dress, speaking with charming ease. "I heard that when you were little, you once climbed the oak tree in the backyard to rescue a cat and ended up breaking your arm. Is that right?" Children can be so reckless, but they are truly adorable. My whole family exchanged surprised looks. I asked at once, "That happened so long ago and hardly anyone knows about it. How did you find out?" Jessica blushed and lowered her head. "Aunt Angela told me. At the time, I had even felt moved, thinking my aunt was trying to build a connection between the two of them. I also remembered one evening when Alex and I were standing on the balcony of my room. He was talking about work. Then he looked at me, his voice softening. I am really lucky to be working with Dr. David. He trusts me a lot and has helped me so much, especially when it comes to fitting into the community and into your distinguished family." I nodded, back then feeling proud that my future husband was so ambitious. But now I know it was a test, a way to probe for what he could make use of. I suddenly remembered the time I walked past the kitchen. The door was not fully closed. Jessica and Aunt Angela were whispering something to each other very closely. When they saw me, they quickly stepped apart. My aunt looked at me, wiping her hands hastily on her apron. "We were just talking about how to make baked apple pie, Kyle's favorite." I used to believe that. But now I know they were discussing another way to make my brother hand over the entire family estate to them. I tightened my grip slightly on the champagne glass in my hand. The pieces were starting to find their places on their own. And the picture was slowly coming into focus, stroke by stroke. I remembered Kyle's engagement party in the backyard of the mansion. Guests were chatting animatedly around the buffet tables. I was picking out some fruit when I saw Dr. David, Alex's close colleague, walk up to my brother. He did not raise his glass in a toast like everyone else. He leaned in and spoke quietly. "Everything is ready, Kyle." I was standing nearby and heard him clearly. I asked right away, "Ready for what, David?" David turned to me with a faint smile. "Ready for a complicated surgery tomorrow. Alex and I will be operating together." I only nodded, feeling something was strange. David was clearly very close to Alex as a colleague, but many times I felt he and my brother seemed unusually close as well. Back then, I still believed everything was a coincidence. A few days later, at a family dinner, Alex picked up a bottle of whiskey and began to pour a glass for Kyle. My brother shook his head. "I am not used to drinking hard liquor." David stepped in from the side and lifted a hand to stop him. "Let me pour. I know what kind of drink suits Kyle better." He took the bottle from Alex, set it aside, and poured a glass of red wine instead. In that brief moment, David and Kyle exchanged a look. No words were needed. They understood each other. I thought it was just the care of a good friend. But now I know it was a way of protecting him. I began to recall each event. From the engagement party, to the birthday celebrations, to the pre-wedding reception. David was always there. He never stayed away from my brother for too long. Alex, on the other hand, did the opposite. He was always trying to draw Kyle away from the crowd. Once, he invited my brother down to the wine cellar, just the two of them. Another time, he pretended to get a call from a doctor and asked Kyle to step out to the car with him to grab some documents. Back then, I did not see anything unusual. But now, looking back, I understand that everything had been arranged. David always stayed close to my brother to watch over him, to intervene, and Alex was always trying to pull him out of that protective circle. I looked toward the center of the hall. Aunt Angela was standing beside an elderly guest, smiling as she laid a hand on his shoulder, as if they were very close. In another corner, Jessica was chatting with a group of girlfriends, a wine glass still in her hand, smiling as if nothing at all had happened. Alex was standing a few steps away from them, his eyes roaming the room. I glanced toward the wooden door on the opposite side. Kyle was standing there with his hands in his pockets, looking relaxed. But when my eyes met his, he gave a small nod. I nodded back. I gently lifted the heavy velvet curtain behind the stage. The light from the hall spilled in, making my eyes sting for a moment. I stepped out with my eyes still red, my walk slightly unsteady, as if I had just finished a long, silent cry. I swept my gaze across the room, searching for Alex. He was standing alone near the fruit table, a drink in his hand, his face calm to the point of coldness. I walked slowly toward him, stopping right in front of him before leaning lightly against his shoulder. "Alex, I am not feeling very well. I just ran outside for a while." Alex snapped his head around. For a moment, his eyes showed a flash of shock, then he quickly regained his composure. "Linda, where have you been? I have been looking for you. Are you all right? The person at the end of the hallway just now? That was you, was it not? What did you hear?" I shook my head, lowering my voice as much as I could. "I am just a little dizzy, and I got too emotional. I had a bit of champagne, so I feel lightheaded. Can you hold me for a moment?" Alex bent down and wrapped his arms around me. His embrace was stiff and full of caution. All right, just lean on me." His voice rang out clearly, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. I lifted my face, my eyes traveling across the hall. From the far left, I saw Jessica circling the round tables, shaking hands and giving brief hugs to a few of the older guests. She turned back just as my eyes met Alex's. Jessica's face went rigid for not even a second before it quickly lit up again. Jessica walked over, her voice sweet as honey. "Oh, Linda, are you not feeling well? I am so worried. Do you need me to call a doctor? There are a few people here who are Alex's friends." I curled my lips into a faint smile, trying to keep my face neutral. "No, it is all right. I am just a little tired. Congratulations to you both. You look beautiful today." Jessica tilted her head with a smile, then lifted her hand and brushed the back of Alex's hand. The touch was so quick that anyone else would have thought it was accidental. "Thank you. I am truly very happy today." She turned away, leaving a thick trail of perfume clinging to my shoulder. Her figure was graceful as if nothing at all had happened in that dark library. Alex leaned close to my ear, whispering quickly, "Are you feeling better? If you are still tired, let me take you home. It is too noisy here." I looked up at his face without answering. His hand was still holding mine, but it had started to sweat coldly. I knew he only wanted me to leave this place as soon as possible. Unfortunately for him, my role tonight still had many scenes left. The sound of a microphone cut through the noise in the room, making everyone fall silent at once. I turned toward the small stage. Kyle was already standing there, microphone in hand, his gaze sweeping over the entire hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and family, today, in the happiest moment of my life, I would like to make an important announcement." The air seemed to solidify. Jessica stood on the floor below, her hands clasped in front of her stomach, her eyes lifted toward the stage. In those eyes, I could clearly see expectation. The corners of her mouth curved slightly, her expression as if she were ready to receive something momentous. From the bar, Aunt Angela also moved closer to the stage, a glass of wine in her hand. Kyle turned and looked straight at Jessica. "My dearest Jessica, to prove the love and lifelong trust I have for you, I want to give you a gift. Not a wedding ring, and not a new car either." He paused for a few seconds before he went on, his voice dropping lower yet ringing through the room. "My gift to you is this Pacific Heights estate, the future home of our family." The hall erupted in murmurs of awe. Several guests cried out. Some could only open their mouths in speechless shock. Jessica raised both hands to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Kyle, I never imagined you would do this. I do not know what to say." Her eyes shimmered as she stepped all the way forward as if pulled by some invisible force. Kyle gave a slight nod, then lifted his hand toward the back. A man in a suit stepped forward. In his hands was a dark leather folder. Kyle smiled and looked out at everyone. "I do not want to wait. Let us sign the deed of gift right here, in front of all of you as witnesses. Let it be a vow for our lifelong happiness." Jessica hurried up onto the stage, taking the folder from the assistant with both hands. She beamed, her voice rising with excitement. "You are incredible. I love you." I watched from a distance, my gaze shifting toward Aunt Angela. She stood still, but the corner of her mouth curved slightly. Her eyes never left the documents in Jessica's hands. She gave a faint nod, her gaze flicking toward Alex in a silent confirmation. Alex was standing right beside me. I could feel his hand tightening around mine. He leaned in to whisper in my ear, "Kyle is really generous." He did not finish the thought, but I knew that in his mind he was already celebrating his victory. I stayed where I was. Inside, though, I was ready for the final scene of the play, and from this moment on, we would be the ones directing it. The entire hall fell utterly silent. Only the soft background music remained, then faded away completely as Kyle took one step forward, his eyes sharp as a blade. Jessica stood right in front of him, her hands trembling as she reached for the gold-plated pen. The moment her fingers brushed the folder, Kyle suddenly yanked it back. The gesture was so quick that the assistant had not even had time to understand what was happening. "Wait, my love." His voice rang out through the microphone, clear and cold enough that even the guests seated at the very back of the hall could hear it. Jessica stepped back a pace, her face drained of color. "Kyle, what are you doing?" Aunt Angela moved forward a few steps, her voice trembling slightly but heavy with pressure. "Kyle, what do you think you are doing? Give those documents to Jessica and stop this nonsense." Kyle gave a faint smile. He did not look at her but turned to face all the guests. Please stay calm, everyone. Before I sign any document related to the family estate, I would like to tell a story. A story about greed, about betrayal, and about a scheme that has lasted for decades. The whole room fell silent. I stayed where I was below the stage, feeling every gaze drawn toward it. Kyle made a small gesture. Right behind him, the large screen lit up. On it was the image of an old document. The lines faded, but still legible. This is the birth certificate of a woman named Angela Ann Smith, born in 1958. The father's name is clearly written as William James Anderson, my grandfather. A murmur rippled through the room. A few people whispered to each other. Aunt Angela shot to her feet, her eyes wide, her face ashen. "Where did you get that? How dare you dig into my life?" Kyle remained calm. "Yes, I found it. And I know you are grandfather's child from another woman, not his lawful daughter, born even before my father. But you were never acknowledged. You had to live in the shadows for years, in the very house you always believed should have been yours." He paused, looking straight at her. "That is why you let hatred lead the way. You turned your resentment into a plan to seize what you believed was yours. But you forgot one thing. Your blood is also the blood of this family. If you truly loved it, you would never have chosen to destroy it." His voice rang through the hall, clear and powerful, like a public sentence being read out. No one dared to breathe too loudly. As for Aunt Angela, her lips moved, but no sound came out. On the big screen behind Kyle, the secretly taken photos appeared one by one. The first was at a small cafe tucked away deep in a quiet neighborhood. Aunt Angela sat across from Jessica, the two of them leaning in close, their expressions tense. The second photo was in a parking lot. Alex was standing beside a black SUV, taking a folder from Aunt Angela. His face looked blank, but his eyes were full of calculation. Kyle turned back to everyone, his voice clear and strong. "Aunt Angela is the mastermind. She sought out Jessica, a beautiful but deeply ambitious woman, and Alex, a man willing to sell his conscience in exchange for power, to build this plan." He pointed toward Aunt Angela. "Their job was to deceive my feelings and my trust in order to take this estate from me." Jessica screamed, her voice shaking. "That is not true. You are lying. I love you." Alex was standing right next to me, his face burning hot. He let go of my hand and strode quickly toward the stage. "Kyle, do not slander us." Kyle's lips curved into a faint smile. "Slander. Then let me ask you this. Dr. David, Alex's close colleague, is in fact working for me." Every eye in the room swung toward Dr. David, who was standing at the back of the hall. "He is the one I placed at Alex's side to watch and gather evidence." David stepped out from his row of seats and walked straight up to the stage. He gave Kyle a brief nod. He did not say a word, but the stern look on his face was enough to confirm everything. Kyle raised his hand and picked up a remote. "And this is what will silence every objection." He pressed the button. An audio recording began to play, a woman's voice sounding first. "That house, every brick, every inch of land, should have been mine." The voice was Aunt Angela's. "Those stupid brats do not deserve it. They are just lucky. You and Alex have to help me take it back. Make Kyle sign the papers before he finds out you are pregnant with Alex's child." Jessica's voice followed, every word crystal clear. "But what if he finds out?" Alex's voice came next, cold as ice. "Do not worry. Once he signs, it is over. We will have everything." The sound cut off. No one said anything. The hall sank into silence. Jessica was gasping for breath. She raised a hand to cover her mouth, her eyes wide as if she could not believe what was happening. Alex stepped back a pace, His whole face had turned white. Aunt Angela stood still, as if she had turned to stone. A middle-aged woman sitting near me blurted out, "My God, this is terrifying." I remained where I was, looking up at the stage, where the truth had just been laid bare for hundreds of eyes to see. And at last, the curtain had fallen on the play. But what lingered was not applause. It was a silence so deep, it made one's skin crawl. Aunt Angela hissed like an animal driven into a corner, her scream bursting out, sharp and shrill. "Ungrateful wretch. You are exactly like him. That old man William cast your mother and me aside. He drove us into misery." I stood a few meters away, looking at her as if I were seeing a completely different person. She was no longer the calm, refined woman she had always appeared to be. I am the rightful heir. All of this should have been mine. I have served this family, lived in its shadow my entire life. I am only taking back what belongs to me. She looked around the hall, her eyes blazing, her breath coming in short bursts. "Do you know what he did? That old man made a promise to my mother. Then he married another woman, had a useless son, and handed everything to him. They are the real thieves." Footsteps sounded steadily from the main entrance. I turned around. A group of plainclothes officers walked in, their eyes sweeping quickly over the crowd. Aunt Angela kept screaming, "I do not regret anything. I only regret not acting sooner, not wiping out every last one of you vermin." One of the officers stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. She whipped around and flung his hand away. "I am not finished with them yet." Before they led her away, she turned to look at Kyle and me, her eyes full of venom. "That old man's blood will never know true happiness. I curse you all." The doors of the hall closed behind her. No one spoke. The whole room felt heavy. A second later, the sound of quiet sobbing rose from the center of the room. Jessica was on her knees on the marble floor, her arms wrapped around Kyle's legs. "No, please, Kyle," Angela forced me. "I really do love you." Kyle said nothing. He looked at her for a moment, then slowly pulled his leg out of her hands. "Your love is very cheap. And the baby inside you? Is that also part of that sincere plan of yours?" Jessica lifted her face, tears mixing with streaks of ruined makeup, her lips trembling. She was no longer the radiant bride from this morning. Alex stepped forward, his hand lifting slightly as if trying to grasp something out of the air. It was all arranged by Angela. I was only dragged into it. A male voice rang out from the back of the hall. "Alex, you have stained the honor of medicine. The white coat is no longer yours to wear. I will make sure of that." I recognized Dr. Heller, one of the most respected professors in the field. Alex went utterly still. The officers moved in toward him. Before they led him away, he turned to look at me, his eyes glossy with tears. "Linda, forgive me. I was wrong. I truly love you." I did not answer. I simply turned my face away, leaving him standing there in a heavy, voiceless emptiness. That was the last time I ever saw even a flicker of feeling in his eyes. But it was already too late. The feeling was dead, and so was the trust. The hall slowly fell quiet. The last footsteps echoed, then faded beyond the great doors. Everyone had left, taking with them their stunned expressions, their bewildered shakes of the head, and the whispers they did not dare say out loud. I stood there among the scattered fallen flowers and the crystal glasses that had never been lifted. Today's wedding reception had ended with a sentence, and what remained was the cold aftertaste of the truth. I slowly walked over to Kyle. He was standing with his back to me, his eyes on the large glass wall where the late afternoon light had just faded away. I laid a light hand on his arm. "Are you all right?" He did not answer right away. It took a moment before he let out a long breath. His shoulders slumped. "I am fine. I just feel empty." His voice had grown hoarse, with none of the sharp edge it had a moment ago. "What does this victory even mean, Linda?" He stared straight ahead at the darkened stage. "We have just stripped an entire scheme bare, but we have also watched the collapse of someone we called our aunt, and the betrayal of people who were once our family, our loved ones." I turned and looked toward the courtyard where the police car had just disappeared from view. I do not feel happy. I just feel an emptiness I cannot quite name. I drew in a breath. A tragedy that had been incubating since grandfather's time had finally exploded like a storm, sweeping everything along with it. I lifted my head and looked at him. "Do you think hatred can be inherited?" He slipped an arm around my shoulders and gave a gentle squeeze. "Maybe it can, but we will stop it here." He spoke slowly. "There will be no more generations in this family who have to carry that resentment. You and I will rewrite our family's story, a different story." We stood there without saying anything more. The breeze slipped in from outside, carrying the faint scent of fading flowers. The white ribbons hanging from the ceiling still swayed, as if they had not yet understood what had just happened. I rested my head on his shoulder. There were no more tears, no more anger, only a heavy silence. We had managed to hold ourselves together, but all around us were the fragments of a wedding that had turned into a funeral. An afternoon that should have belonged to happiness now was nothing but the echo of curses and the loss of everything innocent. The next day, as we cleaned up the mansion after the disastrous wedding, I bent down to brush a thin layer of dust off the bookshelf in the corner of the library. This oak-paneled room had not been touched in a long time. The air was heavy with the smell of old paper and time. Kyle was carefully wiping down the table on the other side. I tugged lightly on a small compartment behind the shelf and felt it catch. Something was stuck inside. I slipped my hand in and loosened the wooden slats one by one. A leather paper envelope appeared, its edges frayed, its brown surface faded to yellow. I picked it up and read the line of blurred ink. "To my daughter, Angela." My throat tightened and I called softly. "Kyle, come look at this." We sat down on the old armchair. He carefully opened the envelope and took out a sheet of paper folded in thirds, the handwriting shaky but still clear. I leaned in close, reading each line as if someone were speaking it aloud. "Angela, my daughter. If you are reading this letter, it is likely that I am no longer here. All my life, I have lived in regret for not having the courage to acknowledge you and your mother. Empty pride and the pressure of the family name turned me into a coward. I know I do not deserve forgiveness, but I have set aside a separate trust fund for you, managed by Wells Fargo Bank. The account number is written below. This is all I can do to atone for a part of my mistakes. I hope you can find it in your heart, just once, to forgive this unworthy father." I folded the paper and laid it gently on my lap. My eyes burned. Kyle let out a quiet sigh. My God, Angela never received this letter. Maybe grandfather asked the old housekeeper to give it to her, but it was lost somewhere inside this house for decades. I wiped the corner of my eyes, my voice catching. A lifetime of hatred. A tragedy stretched over 3 generations. Maybe it would never have happened if she had read these words sooner. A few days later, we went to the city detention center. Aunt Angela sat behind a thick pane of glass, dressed in a gray prison uniform. Her face was still sharp and cold, but no longer as fierce as before. What are you two doing here? To stare at a loser in a cage?" Her voice was hoarse and cold. Kyle did not answer. He pulled a stack of papers from his jacket pocket and pushed it through the narrow slot beneath the glass. I spoke softly. "We found this in Grandfather William's library. He wrote it before he died." And Angela picked them up. Her eyes at first filled only with suspicion. Then her hand began to tremble. She read slowly, each word like a blow to the chest. When she finished, she let the paper fall onto the glass table. She did not say anything. Tears spilled from the corners of her eyes, ran down her cheeks, and soaked into her collar. "Why? Why did you only find it now?" Her voice broke. She was no longer screaming, only making the sound of someone who has just seen the ghost of herself. "I lived and died in hatred my entire life because of a truth that never came to light." What a cruel joke. Kyle stood up. "We did not come here to forgive you. For what you have done, no one can." His voice was calm. "We only wanted to return this last piece of truth to you and to put an end to the past. The money in the trust, legally, is still yours." I rose with him. Before leaving, I turned back to look at her one last time. The hatred in her eyes was gone. All that remained was an old, lonely woman, slumped behind a sheet of glass as cold as her fate. It was over. Not with forgiveness, but with a late truth, heavy as stone. Yet it was enough to close everything. I gently wiped the wooden table, stacked a few books back on the shelf, then adjusted the window latch to let the cool air in. This little tea room, called the Aurora, is where I have gathered what is left of the gentle parts of my life to start over. The space is warm with soft golden light, the scent of freshly brewed oolong, and a faint trace of dried flowers in the air. I want everyone who comes here to feel at ease, as if they have found a place to pause in the middle of a restless city. The wind chime rang softly. I looked up. Dr. David stepped inside, holding a small potted cactus. "Hello, Linda. This place is wonderful." He gave a gentle, sincere smile. "No hurry, no affectation, nothing of those who have lived too long behind masks." "Thank you." "What would you like, David?" "We have a fresh batch of oolong today. Then I will have a cup of oolong." He sat down at the table by the window and hesitated for a moment. "In truth, I have admired your strength and resilience for a long time, even before everything fell apart. I only regret that I could not protect you sooner." I poured tea into the porcelain cup and slid it toward him. The warm scent of tea spread through the air. "It is all right. Sometimes we need to go through storms to learn how to cherish what is simple and sincere. Is that not so?" He nodded. We did not need any more words. David slowly became a regular. He often dropped by in the afternoons, bringing a book or a small plant. We talked about all kinds of things. There was no more hesitation. No need to guess at each other's thoughts. I realized that some feelings do not come from intensity, but from steadiness, honesty, and peace. One early morning, sunlight slipped through the window, falling across the wooden table and making the tiny motes of dust sparkle in the air. I stood behind the counter, wiping down a few teapots. Kyle walked in, nodded in greeting, and sat at his usual spot near the bookshelf. He ordered a cup of white tea, then began telling me about work at the company, his voice gentle. His face was no longer as clouded as before. Perhaps, after everything, we all have to learn how to go on living. I looked up. David was standing on a chair, carefully hanging the lavender painting I had just bought at the weekend art market. A middle-aged guest was chatting happily with the friend who came along with her. The little tea room filled with soft laughter and the gentle clink of cups. I smiled. Storms always pass in the end. Wounds will heal. They may leave scars, but they do not hurt anymore. They remind me of the lessons I have already learned, of the strength I did not know I had. I have learned how to stand up from the wreckage, how to trust again. This time, it is a clear-eyed kind of trust. Not blind, not full of expectations, but very real. I know that from this moment on, my life will be written by me alone, with a heart that has been tempered, a heart more peaceful and resilient than ever before. In the end, the story has come to a close, not with revenge and not with perfect endings, but with growth, with lessons paid for in pain, and with the calm that comes after the storm. If you have ever gone through the pain of betrayal, ever felt lonely among the very people closest to you, I hope this story can give you a bit of courage to stand up again. No one can turn back time, but you can always choose how you move forward. If you feel a connection with this story, please leave a comment and share how you feel. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel Revenge Diary so we can uncover more hidden corners and stories no one has dared to tell. We will keep writing new chapters together.